The box arrived in the mail on a Tuesday. The label had been removed. There was no return address. No, not even a shipping label. It was as though the package had materialized on my doorstep. I picked it up. Heavy, solid wood, like an old steamer trunk, but it was small enough to fit under my bed. And so I carried it into my bedroom and propped it open on the floor. Inside was a thin layer of packing peanuts, and resting on them was a sleek metal clock, square, maybe 12 inches on each side. A single line ran down the center from top to bottom, broken only by a narrow display that showed the numbers 10 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds, 10 days. How did it work? Was it a countdown? A timer? Why had it been sent to me? I turned it over. No buttons, no instructions. The screw holes were covered by plugs. Once removed, they revealed more screws. So it wasn't a battery-operated device. The clock had a power cord, but no connection to anything. I plugged it in anyway. The numbers began to glow. I shrugged. It was clearly a prank. Someone's idea of a very expensive joke. I laughed. I set the clock on the kitchen counter and went about my evening. I have no idea who might have sent this or why, which actually made it funnier to me. I imagined all sorts of scenarios. An ex-boyfriend, perhaps. Actually, no. He'd be more likely to send flowers and chocolates and a dozen roses, not a heavy wooden box. Maybe it was my mum. God, no. More likely my dad. He always did have a great sense of humor. I shook my head. Day 10 passed without incident. I glanced at the clock every now and then, usually when I heard it chime. Each hour the chime was deep and resonant, a gong reverberating through the house. But other than that, day 10 to 9 was uneventful. On day 8, around midnight, the lights flickered. Just for a split second. I was certain I hadn't imagined it because the clock glowed brighter then dimmer. But it was really too brief for me to say for sure. I chalked it up to an old house settling, and that was that. At 2 a.m. on day 7, I was jolted upright in bed. I heard a knock, someone knocking on the back door. I sat up. I listened. Knock, knock. Again, I told myself it was just the wind. But when I got out of bed to check, no one was there. The lock on the door was intact. I walked back to my room and noticed the clock blinked 7 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. 1. The knocking had stopped. I should probably unplug it, I thought, but I didn't. Instead, I went back to bed. That must have been a one-off, a branch scraping against the doorframe, or some animal trying to get in. The next morning, I found the clock back on the kitchen counter where I'd left it. The numbers were unchanged. 10 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. 0. Had I dreamed the entire thing? Knocks, the clock, the chimes, the dread that had seeped into my bones. I touched the cold metal. Still there. Real. Day 6 arrived, and with it, a phone call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but it wasn't the intrusive jangle of an automated message. It was my own breath. I listened again. I could hear myself breathing on the other end of the line. The clock read 6 hours, 6 minutes, and 6 seconds. 6 that afternoon. I felt a prickle of unease crawl across my skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that there was something in my peripheral vision just beyond sight. I turned to look, but there was nothing there. I tried to focus on something else, anything else, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger. As the daylight waned, my anxiety grew. I paced the rooms, half expecting to find the intruder who'd left the clock. There was no one there, and yet the feeling of being watched intensified. When I looked in the mirror, my reflection seemed strange, distant, as if the glass wasn't really glass. I frowned. Was I imagining things? I ran a finger across the surface. Cold glass. I rubbed harder, smearing the condensation, watching my breath form on the surface. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the clock chime the hour, I realized I hadn't eaten all day. I got up and poured myself a glass of water. My hand trembled. I turned back to the clock. Beneath the numbers, I saw the letters E, M, and R shift into view. I blinked. They were gone. I splashed water on my face, willing myself to stop reacting so dramatically to every little flicker of movement. It was an old house. Things shifted in the heat. Then I heard it again. The clock blinked. I stared. The letters spelled my name. They vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. Exhaustion tugged at my eyelids. I needed sleep, but as I settled into bed, the hair on the back of my neck prickled. I knew I wasn't alone. I didn't turn on the light. I lay perfectly still, eyes squeezed shut, straining to listen. I didn't know what I was listening for, but I knew I would hear it. Footsteps on the stairs, heavy and deliberate. I didn't dare open my eyes. The footsteps stopped at the foot of the bed. I kept my eyes squeezed shut. I waited. Then I heard the scrape of a chair leg on the hardwood floor. Day 5 passed without incident. I didn't leave the house. I didn't need to. I had everything I required within 4 walls. The threat was here. I could feel it pressing close, waiting. I slept fitfully. I dreamed of a voice whispering, almost. Day 4. My friend Lisa came by. "What is that?" she asked, gesturing to the clock. "A clock," I said. "It's counting down to something." She stared at the numbers. "Do you think we should smash it?" I said, "We can." And we did. We took a hammer to it. The metal dented. The display cracked. But the numbers kept ticking beneath the shattered glass. Day 3. I woke up late. As I stumbled to the bathroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I smiled tiredly at myself. It was then I realized I was lagging behind my reflection. It was smiling back at me a second after I'd looked away. Then it raised its hand a second after me, as if hesitant. The clock read 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 3 seconds. 3. Day 2. My house grew colder. I curled up on the couch with a blanket, watching the numbers tick by. Breath became visible in the late summer air. The shadows lengthened even at noon. I set the clock outside. It was back on my pillow that night, glowing softly in the dark. Day 1, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at 1 hour, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. 5. The seconds crawled by. Las 0:10, las 0:09, las 0:08. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Unknown number. "Don't be afraid," My voice whispered through the speaker. The last hours crawled. Las 0:10. Las 0:09. Ready, a voice breathed from everywhere and nowhere. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 5 seconds. The house vibrated. Cupboards rattled. I clutched the clock, heartbeat matching the numbers. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 1 second. The world seemed to hold its breath. The display hit 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Silence. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then a long, slow exhale from right behind me. Thank you, it whispered. The numbers flashed once, then reset. 10 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. 0. This time, beneath the numbers, faint letters appeared. My name. The clock is counting again. I don't know what happens at 0. I just know the exhale felt like it wasn't done.